Maneva na se ma PENDREAM TV. PENDREAM TV de o se dem yopo.
Mema wakwaba ede ba PENDREAM TV so make sure say obe subscribe to channel no click bell so say the news to our sabit me aka ntem no watie afa so make sure say obe like na wa comment no share ama afoforo so nsaka na comment section ho so no opese wo kire wa adwen obetimi ede wadwen kire ato honom na amanfo so anya bia kenkan na onim say PENDREAM TV de eye nsem a ekoso Ghana yam politics mu ne ede ba na yasaka ya ne ede abranti na so me video I saka pese no che na ye de ba nti me mo modern astro so obehwe video we amana si awie na wa kire wa adwen e comment section na se yenko video
secondary education. Through this stakeholder dialogue, we will collectively devise strategies and solutions to further halt the decline and improve the free SHS program. We are committed to abolishing the double track system as soon as possible. Mr. Chairman, between 2012 and 2016, my administration paid particular attention to technical and vocational education. When we regain power in 2024, we will revisit the initiatives that we commenced and will review the current trends and make TVET education more engaging and industry-driven. Enhancing partnerships between TVET institutions and industries across various sectors will be a priority involvement of our industries in shaping TVET training curricula that align with their needs, with the needs of the job market. And this is what we're going to emphasize so that students should be more equipped with entrepreneurial and practical skills that fit the job market. With regards to STEM education, we're going to streamline STEM education, mainstream STEM education into our educational system. We don't believe in standalone STEM secondary schools like this administration is building. We believe that to get a holistic training, all-round training, even if you are studying the humanities, you need some science education and some mathematics and technical education. And so rather than build standalone STEM secondary schools, we're going to rehabilitate all the old science resource centers and create them into STEM centers. So that all the secondary schools can have access to STEM learning instead of a few privileged secondary schools. In all the E-blocks that we built, the community day schools, we put 4 laboratories. A laboratory for physics, for chemistry, biology, and general science. Those laboratories are going to be the STEM centers for the community day schools. We're going to develop those laboratories in all the community days, availability of online mode of distance learning. As a way of diversifying delivery of tertiary education. One in each of the newly created regions. This is to ensure that tertiary educational opportunities are accessible across the country and bridge the gap between the newly created regions and the old established regions. We're also committed to providing scholarships and financial assistance through the scholarship scheme, and this will not be on protocol basis to children of favored persons. We also intend to enhance student loan scheme to provide proper, sufficient loans to students to be able to finance their education, and they are only enjoined to pay back when they have been formally employed. This is commitment to achieving equity and inclusiveness are therefore at the heart of our vision for education. Our focus will be on bridging the gap between the less endowed schools located in the rural endowed schools, and irrespective of their socioeconomic background, their geographical location, their gender, or any other characteristic. And we started to achieve this when Nana Ajiman was Minister of Education. We saw a change in the performance of secondary schools. Some rural schools that before had been performing very poorly suddenly jumped up to the top, and there were many of them who came into the top 20 in terms of performance, at the West African Examination Council exams. We're going to continue and make that a fact of life again. Key in NDC's equity agenda is the promotion of gender equity at all levels of education. We commit ourselves to take their access to quality education. Now let me emphasize that the provision of holistic education, more opportunities can be created for these educated youth to apply the skills and knowledge that they have acquired. Creation and employment, a priority item on our next leadership agenda. A major challenge facing our young people employment. As reported in the 2021 Population and Housing Census, Ghana has a working age population of 19 who find themselves in vulnerable work situations. It means they are underemployed. The general unemployment rate currently in 2016. And so it means that if you disaggregate the figures, 33% of young people aged 15 to 24 in our population do not have employment. And indeed, if you go to our homes, there are several who cannot find employment. But the alarming statistic is also that the higher unemployment ratio is among those with a tertiary education. And so it means that you are punished for successfully achieving tertiary education, because unemployment is lower amongst those who are secondary school holders and GHS and basic school history for youth development. This ministry is going to cut across all ministries, because it is going to input policy for employment of young people in all the ministries, from education to health to agriculture to industry to trade and every other ministry. And so this is the ministry which will pay attention to youth empowerment and employment. And that's why we call it the Ministry of Youth Development. It's going to be separate from the sports ministry. The sports ministry is not going to have anything to do with it because we want 100% concentration on issues of young people. A key plank of our job creation, this program has caught the fancy of many young people across the country. This innovative program is designed to create a thriving economic environment that operates round the clock, fostering a multitude of employment opportunities for young people. Under the 24-hour economic program, we'll focus on revitalizing existing and dormant industries. And so we're going to invest in bringing industries that have collapsed back on stream, and existing industries that are not performing well, we're going to invest in them so that they can create more employment for young people. We will invest in fostering the growth of emerging sectors that have the potential to operate beyond traditional working hours. By extending the business hours and encouraging businesses to operate during evenings and at weekends, we aim to maximize productivity and create a diverse range of jobs that cater for the needs and aspirations of our youth. This initiative, I'm convinced, will not be smoothly implemented without the involvement of the private sector. My administration will therefore work closely with the private sector, which presently employs 90% of the workforce, according to the Ghana GSS 2021, including business entrepreneurs and investors. By fostering partnerships and providing incentives, we'll grant the private sector some tax reliefs to encourage them to embrace and operationalize the 24-hour economy policy. We will incentivize them to expand their operations and create new job opportunities. This collaborative effort with the private sector will not only stimulate economic growth, but also enable the youth to gain valuable employment experience and contribute to the nation's development. One other area I find critical in our job creation policy is the agricultural and agribusiness sectors. As a farmer myself, I strongly identify agriculture as a major backbone to the Ghanaian economy. Agriculture in all its forms, from crops, crop farming, fishing, animal rearing, etc., continues to be an avenue for employment amongst the young people of our country. As part of our job creation strategy in the agricultural sector, we will strategically diversify the agricultural landscape and tap into new market opportunities. We intend to make agriculture sexy and cool. We're going to move away from the hoe and cutlass agriculture. We will create farmer service centers so young agricultural entrepreneurs who want to go into farming will receive all the services they need from the Farmer Service Center. While they are receiving those services, we will teach them to use the equipment themselves. As I stand here, I can drive a tractor, I can plow my own field, and we will teach the young people to be able to do it. And we'll teach you all the agric extension knowledge that you need so that you can create a good income for yourself. Aside from that, we will also introduce modern agricultural techniques. I'm sure those of you who've been to other countries, you notice that now a lot of produce is being done in greenhouse conditions. And when we're in office, if you go to Dawenya, we set up greenhouses there. The intention was to allocate it to young people who were interested in agriculture to produce vegetables, tomatoes, onions, carrots, and everything for the markets in Accra. Unfortunately, after we left, my understanding is the place has been abandoned. And so we're going to make agriculture sexy and cool so that young people will be interested in going to agriculture. We will prioritize equipping young people with the necessary technical skills, entrepreneurship and training, and the requisite technological support to enable them offer productivity enhancing services to farmers. By empowering young people to engage in agricultural ventures as profitable businesses, we envision a thriving agricultural sector that contributes to both economic growth and sustainable employment generation. We will also expand investment in the fintech and digital spaces, both in payment platform options, but also in other sectors like agriculture. I met a fintech community recently, and they offer services from like church collections. There's a fintech that has created a platform for churches, and so they're able to make their payments online, pay their tithes online using the payment platform. But there's also a fintech that has registered farmers growing soybean, and it gives them the seeds and the inputs, and then it gives them micro credit using their payment platform, and dressmakers selling fertilizer to farmers because they have political connections. They get the fertilizer and the farmers don't get the fertilizer. And so we'll give tax incentives also to agriculture, especially agribusiness ventures. And as I said, in every region, we're going to establish an agro-industrial zone. Government will acquire the land, will do the road, will bring the water, the electricity, everything there. So anybody who wants to set up a cassava processing plant, a cashew processing plant, any agro-industrial business, you have land aligned with political delineations. They align with the value chain. And so you must put cashew processing plants in Bono and Bono East regions, because that's the area where they produce the most cashew in this country. And so you tailor the industry to the comparative advantage they have in terms of their production. And so we'll do these agro-industrial zones and put those processing plants there so that young people can set up their businesses and get employment to do. We'll create a database and a dashboard that allows young people to enter their qualifications, so that at any one time employers can go into that database, and if they want a particular skill, a certain qualification in accounting, they'll be able to see all those who have those qualifications, the schools they attended, the year they completed, their experience, everything. And if they take any person from that youth database and employ him, we'll give them a tax incentive for employing that young person. And there'll be a dashboard that shows every person employed, the dashboard, a myriad of jobs. It's a critical sector in our economy and provides significant employment opportunities for our young people. However, it is essential to acknowledge the potential environmental risks associated with this industry, particularly in terms of destruction of our natural habitats and water bodies, as exemplified by Galamsey. We are committed to striking a balance between economic development and environmental conservation. We're going to employ a lot of the young people currently engaged in Galamsey. we're going to employ them in reclamation of the land and planting of trees to reclaim the lands that have been destroyed. And so young people are going to be recruited. They'll be paid a monthly income to grow trees, not plant trees. Tree planting, we just go and put a tree there. Nobody ever goes back to see whether it has thrived or not. These will be engaged in growing the trees. They'll plant the trees, and every day they'll go and check on the trees. During the Hamatan, they'll have aboboyas with polytanks in the back. They'll go and water the trees to make sure that the trees are growing. Engaged in the sector. Additionally, we'll prioritize the streamlining and enhancement of community mining schemes to encourage local communities to actively participate in legal mining activities while ensuring that the benefits are distributed equitably. These and many other practical, and you find broader policies in that manifesto with regards to job creation and the educational sector. There are other, as every new school that we build, it must mandatorily come with teachers' accommodation. And so we're not going to allow the building of primary schools without accommodation for the teachers. The idea of incentives for rural teachers. It is a 20% markup of their basic salary for teachers who teach in rural areas. The difficulty with implementing it has been how to identify what a rural area is. And so we intend to sit with the teachers' unions and together map out what rural schools are. And once we know which the rural schools are, those teachers who agree to go on posting to those schools will get 20% of their basic salary as an incentive for going to the rural schools. We'll also have a teachers' housing scheme. Government is going to partner with NAT and NAGRAT and all built for them. You must have at least 15 to 20 years of your working life ahead of you. And government will guarantee to do the deductions over 20 years. The houses will be indexed in cedis, not in dollars. And so the price of the house will be in cedis. And every month a contribution will be taken from your salary to pay for the house, so that by the time you're giving rise to apathy and skepticism amongst young people, including students, about the future of this country, failure to take interest in national affairs will have the effect of entrenching the problems and worsening the already dire situation in which we find ourselves. I therefore enjoin young people to take an active part in our politics and in what goes on in our country. I, however, urge the young people of the country to keep hope alive. And not to despair, even as there appears to be no light at the end of the tunnel on the horizon. And that the next NDC government will work tirelessly to restore the economy to a sound footing, so that you can find jobs and be able to live decent lives. And as I emphasize, the next NDC administration will averagely be the youngest cabinet ever in the history of this country. I therefore invite the teeming masses of Ghanaian youth to join forces with our party, the NDC, as we wage this campaign to wrest power Thank you. You may be seated.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Shall we appreciate him once again? Building the Ghana we want together. And this is the time where we also get to play a part by making a comment. If you have a suggestion, dear partners, we're also live on our Facebook channel, WIUC-GHANA. There are 2 microphones in the aisles. Can I see the ushers? Can we have the microphones? Can you bring them forward to this side? And we will keep you behind the microphone. And I'm going to give the first 10 questions to our students because it is all about the youth. And I would like to call Hakeem Enyan Steve, who is our SRC president. He will have the privilege of asking the So whilst our students get ready, Your Excellency, one of our deans has a question. Your Excellency, are you ready for us? So Dr. Akwasam. One of our deans would want to ask a question. Whilst we have
Excellency, I've followed with keen interest your presentation and many others that you've done in other areas throughout your tour. One issue that actually seems to be a burden on my shoulders and probably that of the country the problem of uncompleted. You also left some when you were leaving office. The current administration is also having some to deal with. Basically, what are your plans with regards to uncompleted projects in Ghana? Because it seems to me that the areas you are tackling, educational sector and so on and so forth, many projects have been done which are still lying idle. But we took loans as a nation to start them. But the ones you are promising, can we pause as a nation for even just a year to go back to all the viable projects and see what we can do with them? before we can start new ones in the same areas. Your Commander Sugar Factory is lying idle. Loan from India government is lying idle. What do we do? The final one is, when you assume office, will you look at the uncompleted National Cathedral? Thank you.
So I will also ask Dr. Elias Megbeto of the business school to ask his question, and then I'll take a third question from the dean of our business school, and then you can answer that, and then afterwards we can start with our students. And please, let's keep our questions brief. Thank you.
Thank you. Education. We train people, we give them allowances, and we give them scholarships. Some of these scholarships, very huge sums, especially those who travel abroad. In the trainings, sometimes we give hypocritical and state funds. Nothing is done. They are flying out of the country. Nothing is done to bond them. Some take government scholarships. Nothing is done to recoup our monies. These leakages in the public sector, how can this be addressed? Maybe let me add the second one. Misguided public policies or implementation of certain misguided public policies. Some of them, I think, they are not needed to be covered in the educational sector. But we see expenditures, for example, distributing tablets to students now, which I feel is misguided because there are other things that need to be done. Another misguided expenditure is what I see as the National Cathedral. You see, those who link this National Cathedral to the biblical David, when you read the Bible, David, after he became successful and victorious and defeated all his enemies.
Thank you very much, Doc. I think your question is a bit lengthy, so respectfully, if we can wrap up here.
Let me just end it.
Yes.
When David defeated them, and he was satisfied, that is when he said, let me build for the Lord. Yeah. Have we defeated our enemies of inflation, exchange rate, and others? I end my question.
Thank you. So we'll have the third question from Doc.
Your Excellency, thank you for your brilliant speech and also your vision for this country. I have two questions. One is about, I didn't hear anything about health. We have a situation where we hear most of our nurses and doctors are running out of this country. What is your plan so that our nurses and doctors that we train can remain in this country? Number two, I want to hear something about the dirty environment in which we find ourselves. All the sachet water, the plastics that we see around, it makes our city really a shame if you visit other countries and cities. Thank you.
Thank you. I think His Excellency can now answer these questions because we've had 4 questions already. We've had 4 questions already, Your Excellency.
Thank you. Actually, my presentation focused on the areas you asked me to come and talk about. It was about our policy for education and employment for young people, and so that's what I covered. And so I didn't do sanitation, I didn't do healthcare, but I'll take those questions anyway. I think I can answer them. So let's begin with uncompleted projects. My view is that it's a shame that we abandon projects because the credit will be given to our predecessors. Our constitution in the directive principles of state policy says that succeeding governments shall continue the projects begun by preceding governments. It's there in black and white, it's in the constitution. And so even though it's not coded in our law, it is in our directive principles of state policy. And so we have an obligation to continue projects that were started by a previous government. And I know that from Jerry Rawlings' time, projects that were started by Rawlings were continued by Kufuor. In Professor Mills's time, projects that were started by Kufuor were continued by Professor Mills. All the Get Fund projects that were awarded to contractors under Kufuor, Get Fund continued to pay and certify certificates and pay them for the work done. The only exception with President Kufuor's administration and ours was that they started a gang of 6 road projects. If you remember, we called some road projects the gang of 6. And even though they initiated the projects, there was no dedicated funding to continue them. But what did we do? Professor Mills made us do budgetary allocation for each of those projects. One is the Tedekwashi to Adenta road that we now pass on without remembering what it was like. Another is the road from Achimota Brewery all the way through to John Tay School. There were 6 of them. One was the Swami Interchange. And I can assure you that when we came into office, we continued and completed all of them. When NDC came into office, the Swami Interchange was only 32% complete. By the time we left office, it was almost 90% complete. All that was left was the extension to Ebuakwa formulation, which this government is continuing. There was also the affordable housing project that was started. And what we did was, because government did not have the money to complete the project, we handed over the flats to SHC, State Housing Company, and to SNIT. And because of that policy of handing it over to SNIT, Boteman is completed and is occupied. We also gave them the Kumasi affordable housing to complete, but I think SNIT ran out of funds or something. But I stated clearly that when I come into office, we're going to do an inventory of all those abandoned and uncompleted projects. And in every year's budget, we're going to make budgetary allocation for completing them. And like I said, we're not going to be in a hurry to start new projects when we have all these uncompleted projects that have been abandoned. I mean, for instance, take the Agenda 111 hospitals. I said that it would have been more prudent to start, say, 40 of them and finish them. And then you can continue another 20 and finish them and continue. But you start 88 hospitals at once, all over the country. And recently the Agenda 111 Secretariat says they can only finish 20 before they leave office. So it means that 68 hospitals are going to be left to President Mahama to come and complete. And so we must also look at the prudence of how we start projects in terms of completion. And I think that that's something we would look at. So we won't be in a hurry to start new projects. The little money we have, we will make budgetary allocation in every year's budget to continue and finish those projects. There's a particular problem with the projects in the education sector. You go to many secondary schools, they are half-completed dining halls, half-completed dormitory blocks, half-completed classroom blocks, laboratories, and everything. These were projects that were awarded by the GET Fund. This government has collateralized 60% of the income of the GET Fund in what they call the Dachi bond. And they have taken that money up front. And so now, only 40% of the revenue is available to GET Fund to continue these projects. And that is the hindrance that has stalled most of the projects in the secondary schools. And that's why children don't have dormitories to sleep in, they don't have classrooms to study in. And so I made a statement and I said that the Dachi bond should be added to the debt restructuring so that it can free up, and we should add it to the public debt so that it can free up the flows of the GET Fund to continue and finish all the projects that the GET Fund has awarded in all the various schools that we have around. And so we'll prioritize the completion of ongoing and abandoned projects rather than starting new projects. National Cathedral, I've spoken about this before. For me, the National Cathedral was a covenant somebody made with God, an individual. I'm sure that if he really had asked God what God would want him to do with $400 million, I don't think God would have chosen a cathedral. I don't think God would have chosen a cathedral when $400 million could have provided textbooks for all our students in school. I don't think God would have chosen a cathedral when he could have provided hostels in our universities for our students to have a place to stay. I don't think God would have asked you to build him a cathedral when we could have used that money to dualize the road from here to Cape Coast. God didn't ask for it. Somebody promised it to God. And so if a correction. I meant Sofo line interchange, not Swami interchange. I was told I said Swami interchange. I meant Sofo line interchange. Thanks for the correction. And so it was a personal promise. And if I have 400 million, God will be angry with me if I use it to build that cathedral. So I'm not going to take taxpayers 400 million or borrow 400 million from any source to build that cathedral. I said that if us as Christians believe that we should have that cathedral, then it's our duty to raise that money from our own pockets or from other Christian organizations that can help us to build that cathedral. But I don't believe that we should use any taxpayers' money or borrow money and add to our public debt to build that cathedral. We're not Christians alone in this country. There are Muslims, there are Buddhists, there are African traditional religionists, and all of them contribute to taxes. And so I don't think that one religion, we as Christians, should take taxpayers' money that is paid by Muslims and Buddhists and African traditional religionists and build a cathedral for ourselves. The Muslims built their national mosque, and as far as I know, not one cedi of the government of Ghana taxpayers' money went into the mosque. And so when we come, we'll do consultation with Ghanaians or even with the Christian community, what we want to do with regards to a cathedral. If it's a priority, then we must go look for the money and build it. But I'm not, as president, going to use any public funds to build a cathedral. The basic principle that underlies scholarships is that one, the course the student is going to do is not available in Ghana, or it is a priority course where we do not have enough capacity to train students. And so those are the principles that we look at. I mean, if you want to do an MBA, there are so many schools doing MBA in Ghana today. Why should somebody go abroad to go and do an MBA and be paid for by Ghanaian taxpayers' money? If you want to go and do a Harvard MBA, for heaven's sake, pay for it yourself. And so we must stick by the rules and regulations for which scholarships are awarded. For instance, in our time, we gave a lot of scholarships to go to Scotland. Many Ghanaian students went to Scotland because we had started the beginning of oil production, and we did not have enough expertise in oil production. And so in the 4 years that I was in office, actually in the 8 years from Professor Mills's time, we skewed a lot of the scholarships to students who were going to learn petroleum sector, oil management, accounting, oil sector law, and so on and so forth. And there are many students who got those scholarships and are back here in Ghana and working. And so we must draw the lines. We must have a minister like Nana Jenopoku-Agyeman who will make sure that the scholarships were being given are for scholars who come from backgrounds that do not have the capacity to sponsor them. And so again, the social construct of the person's origin should be taken before a scholarship is given. I mean, there are many of us who can afford to pay the fees of our children if we decide that they should go to university abroad. And so we have no business going to the scholarship secretariat and asking for scholarships for our children. And so we will have a person superintending those getting the scholarships are deserving of those scholarships. Misguided policies, yes, and he mentioned one. You bring a new curriculum, the children have no textbooks in basic school for the last 4 years, and you think that giving pre-tertiary students laptops, tablets, is more important. Of course, everybody knows the political expediency. The pre-tertiary students are going to register eating already, and they are going to be the ones voting. So this is a gift to entice them to vote for the current government. Otherwise, if you are using 1.3 billion cedis to give pre-tertiary students laptop, our priority would have been different. There are other things begging for funding in our educational system than those laptops. But it's a bribe for them to vote for this government. But I mean, those who were working in the banking sector that you cruelly closed, nine indigenous banks and threw them all out onto the street. Bankers have become Uber drivers. Those are the same people whose children are in pre-tertiary education. So you think if you give his child a tablet, the child will vote for you after what you have done? Those children go home and their parents struggle to put a meal on the table for them because of your poor mismanagement of this economy. Stand another 4 years of this poor driver Banza and his driver's mate. And then he spoke about health providing opportunities for them to work. And that's why we're building the community day secondary school, so that we could employ more teachers. And that's why we're building hospitals, so that we could employ more nurses and more health professionals. Let us produce enough to feed ourselves, but also to export. If you listen to me, I said there's nothing wrong with migration of health workers. Indeed, when we come into office, we will sign contracts with countries. Philippines have done it. Philippines have signed contracts with countries in the Middle East and other places in Europe, and they export their nurses and caregivers to those countries on fixed-term contracts. So you get a 5-year contract to go and work in a country. A small percentage of your income is remitted back to the country, but you also gain experience, and after 5 years when you come back, you are more experienced than you would have been probably if you were working at home. And while you are there, you'll be remitting money back home to your parents, and that is a very huge source of foreign currency. As I speak to you, seamen, Philippines has the most seamen on all the ships in this world, and all of them are earning money and sending it back. We have the Maritime University here. Why don't we open it up and train more Ghanaian youth as seamen and put them on ships to work? And so, as part of our employment ministry's obligation to deal with labor affairs and also to deal with employment matters, they will also have a desk where we sign agreements with other countries that need professionals to come and work, and we will send our professionals there to go and work, gain experience, gain money, and come back home. Sanitation. We will close down the Ministry of Sanitation. One, to reduce expenditure, and two, I don't see any use. Accra, our country is dirtier than when there was no Ministry of Sanitation. Indeed, this country was cleaner when sanitation was under local government than as a standalone ministry. And so we'll close down that ministry and we'll take the sanitation schedule back to local government. Indeed, because we want to reduce government expenditure, it's not only the sanitation ministry. In transport, aviation and railways, we're going to close them down and send them back to the transport ministry. We're going to combine communications and information again. And so we want to reduce the number of ministries. And so with cleanliness, we think that it is a duty of the district assemblies. Every assembly has an obligation to make, and it must be a criteria of performance for the district chief executive, that if we come to your district and your district is dirty, that is one of the performance indicators. And so when we're going to change district chief executive, if you have a dirty district, we will remove you and bring somebody who can make sure that the district is clean. Our problem as a nation is we're not holding people accountable. The district chief executive is giving allowances, is giving a house, but because we don't hold them accountable, everybody just gets away with murder. So it will be a performance criteria. We'll send an independent team around to the districts and they will mark you. If your district is dirty, they will give you a negative mark. And when it comes to reshuffling district chief executives, you will be shown your performance. This is what you did. Your district was dirty, you know. You did not provide social services. You built only one primary school. We wanted you to build 2 primary schools. You built only 1. You have a performance criteria on which you will be judged. It will be scientific. You won't assume that somebody has victimized you, because you see that you yourself did not perform. And when you're going to the district, we will tell you what we want to see. And if you don't meet it, we will remove you and bring somebody who can do it. And so that's it.
Thank you very much. So we're going to take another set of 4, but I see there is a lecturer at the mic. The next 3 must be students. If you're not a student of this university and you are in the next 4, I'm sorry, I will not take your question. So after my colleague faculty, I have the SRC president and then 2 other students. Tell us your name, your school, and please, your question must be brief. If it's too long, I would have to cut in. So, Your Excellency, the next 4 questions. Thank you.
My name is Thomas Achumbe from the business school, and I'm the 10th patron for Wisconsin. 10, Wisconsin, are you there? Good. Your Excellency, I have 3 concerns. When you met us at Atraku, I didn't have the chance that you have come to my house, so it's a full chance for me. Number 1, you talk about, that day we talk about you. The lawyers also came and spoke, but a chunk of other students are left out. And these are the business school, the HR, the marketers, the accountants, and the banking and finance students. What do we have for them? I am suggesting that a law should be passed to compel universities to start doing internship in companies and organizations. That will mean also laying out or throwing out incentives for these companies to accept these students, so that by the time they finish the 4 years, and in addition to their national service, they would have done 4 years at least, asking for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years experience. These students, where are they going to get experience? So I am suggesting that a law like that should be passed. Number 2, I also have another concern. Yesterday I interacted with a young guy of 21 years. He was lamenting of how he struggled to get a job. And any office he went, the application was always received by grandmothers and grandfathers. All these people are there on contracts. Can you come out with a law that will cut off the contracts? If you have the contract for 4 years, it's okay. So that there will be vacancies at the top. So the promotion will be done and people can get a chance to be promoted, to get employment. Lastly, the blocks, very important, must continue, and I urge you to continue with it. Thank you very much.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As the president for Wisconsin International University College. His Excellency, your second question, public sectors. We believe that some young people also have to create their own jobs. Now, the exchange rates and other things such as, let's say, loans. The interest rates on loans are actually high. What will be the policy for young men and women who may want to create their own jobs to employ their other colleagues? Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Princess Adegoke. I'm a communication student. Your Excellency, my question is that, as a presidential aspirant, how do you plan to support both students and entrepreneurs, particularly those involved in industries like food use manufacturing and those SMEs? My second question is that the attempt by the MSMEs to automate their manufacturing processes in order to improve efficiency and productivity is constrained by the unavailability of machineries locally. As president, what do you intend to do about the cost of duty on imported machinery for small-scale businesses? Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Nana Alexis Obenewa Opoku Ajiman, a student of the Wisconsin International School. My question is with regards to the current Ministry of Youth and Sports, and also with regards to the Ghana Youth Authority and its policies, which I believe in 2016, before you went out of power, was actually initiated with some policies that actually guided the youth on what exactly they should go for and what the country itself has for them. In your case of trying to separate that ministry, what will be the policy, or again, what will be the road plan for you to be able to educate the youth? Because I believe majority of my colleagues here do not even know about the Ghana Youth Policy, let alone know what is in there that helps them become who they are as Ghanaian youth at hand. Thank you.
Good evening, His Excellency. Okay. I'm in the person of Batia Samuel Sante, the immediate past SRC president of Wisconsin University. Yes, we are here as products of private universities. I want to know, when given the nod to become president of the republic, what is the policy that you are going to put in place to aid private university owners run smoothly so that the pressure that we students go through by paying exorbitant school fees can be brought to the minimal level? And also, I want to know the policy that you have that is going to affect the entertainment industry as we have upcoming artists in the system. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Sorry for the intermission for those of you who didn't know what was happening. We were live this whole while, and so they were going off live, so they needed us to just calm things a bit before we continue. So now we're not live anymore. It's being filmed for later playback. All right, so thank you. It says, actually that is the new model of training students. The old model of having them sit in class, 24/7, just learning theory, no longer exists. If you go to modern schools, modern tertiary institutions, they have agreements with industry and with business. And so they send their young people on internship to go and work. Indeed, there are some part of the school year where half the year, 6 months, the children are not in school. They are out in the field working and gaining practical experience for what they are being taught. And then when school opens, they come back. But that is the business of your school, to sign partnerships with business industry and place your students there. Right now, I see all the universities just give their students a letter and say, go and find a place and do internship. So the children come around, uncle, can you get me a place to do my internship? Then you have to call people you know and say, oh, can you accept